Is rolling. Audio rolling in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. This is a very special show. We are dedicating it today to honoring our men and women who protect and serve our country, who protect our families and the way of life in this great country. Originally slated for Veterans Day, this show was, but here I feel like every day should be a celebration and an honoring of our veterans and the men and women who serve in our military forces. Though sadly, seemingly divided at this time in our country, we can all agree on this. We support and we love those in our armed forces. They are our brothers, our sisters, mothers and fathers. They are our family. My grandfather, Colonel Harris Center, served our country his entire life. Most of it was in the CIA. My other grandfather on my mother's side, Private First Class Clifford J. Peralt, spent years abroad on the front lines and away from my grandmother, her 3 siblings, and away from his life here in Santa Barbara. He came back. I remember my grandfather spent many nights sitting up with him watching Johnny Carson. And at a young age, I could feel that he had brought back a lot more that he didn't share with the family. That was probably, I guess, good for him. He came back with the stress of war and what he had seen. What he had experienced obviously affected him in ways that I'll fully never understand. And in those days, men of his generation really didn't talk about what they'd been through. But again, as a young boy, many of my clearest memories of my grandfather, of him sitting in his chair, obviously with some mental pain caused by those experiences. So we want to celebrate those veterans today. And we'd like to celebrate and think about them and remind you to think about them every day, not just one day a year. Whether it was last week, Veterans Day, or whether it's this week, we should all remember and always remember those veterans. And all of you listeners out there that have served, we want to thank you and we want to honor you today by talking about how we can all play a part in slowing the current epidemic, and it's been going on a long time, of suicides by veterans. A staggering 22 per day is the latest figure. For people like my grandfather, and maybe yours, maybe your husbands, your wives, so that they don't suffer alone. I know we're all being bombarded with bad news every single day in the media, on our social media and in our homes, dealing with a pandemic and this, what it seems like by media accounts, a seemingly divided country. There's overwhelming issues everywhere. But this is not that kind of show today. This show is a positive message with hope, and discussing with us with a very, very special guest. Stay with us this hour and share this message with a veteran you love, and even those that you have yet to meet. I promise we all feel a little better after spending time with our special guest today. You know him already as a recent inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the Doobie Brothers, as the guitarist for Steely Dan and the Doobie Brothers. He has played as a session member for musical artists such as Eric Clapton, Dolly Parton, Sheryl Crow. He's toured with Elton John, Linda Ronstadt. He has 8 platinum records to his credit. He's been performing since 1968, and as he says, the handlebar mustache that he wears has been in fashion since then. We all got our fashion from our special guest today. He's Jeff Skunk Baxter. And you know him, as I said, but do you know him for his artistic, what he's brought to the world in his artistic gifts. But do you know that he chairs the U.S. Congressional Advisory Board on missile defense? You didn't know that, did you? Skunk has become one of the national security's world's most well-known counterterrorism experts. In this role, Skunk helps both policymakers and defense contractors better understand the way terrorists think and plan attacks. We couldn't be more thrilled to have him on as our special guest today to celebrate our veterans. And in fact, he's coming back for the second time on the Jeremiah Show, first time with Mike Gormley. Welcome back, Jeff.
Well, it's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to even be considered in the same breath as our veterans. Thank you for the opportunity.
I don't think you're welcome, and thank you. And I don't think there is a better person to speak to what the veterans go through in the military, abroad, or wherever they happen to be, and then what they face afterwards. And we wanted to talk about, maybe first let's start with your career in military, because your career in music is so well established. Wanted to talk a little bit about how you got involved in, in the military and as a U.S. Congressional Advisory Board for the missile defense. How that all got started.
Well, I just want to make sure that I don't at all not disingenuous. I'm not in the military. I do work with a number of DoD agencies and IC agencies, intelligence community agencies, but I'm actually not a member of the military, nor I ever was. I actually showed up for my draft board physical, and they wouldn't take me. Not that I wanted to go, but I showed up.
Mm-hmm.
But it all kind of got started. Let's see, how do most of it had to do with technology. I'm a big technology fan. My dad was Army, 5 years active, 20 years reserve. He left the military as a lieutenant colonel. And he imbibed me with a sense of history, for starters. I grew up in Mexico, Mexico City. And I remember when I was 5 years old, my mom taught me to play the piano. She gave me piano lessons and taught me to read, two incredible gifts. And so I'm reading Huckleberry Finn with my dad, and my dad comes in and he says, "Oh, so you can read now?" And I'm a little snot. So I go, "Yeah, I can read." And so he goes into the library and pulls out a copy of The Gathering Storm by Winston Churchill and drops it in my lap and says, "Read that." Okay. So it took me about 2 years to get through it, but it changed my attitude, I think, or it at least gave me a pathway to look at what service, public service, serving, duty, honor, country, things like that. And then my dad being in the military, I was surrounded by military folks all the time. So I think it put me on the right road. Then, being a musician and being a guitar player, as you know, all guitar players are total gear sluts. I mean, you can't, if something lights or beeps, you've got to get one and plug it in, and find out. As a matter of fact, I'm even working on a project now to use vacuum tube amplifiers to protect digital circuits against the electromagnetic pulse from a nuclear blast. But that's another thing. So I have this knowledge of technology. I've read Aviation Week and Change Defense Weekly and read all this stuff. And then much of the knowledge that I gained from that, I ended up using with the companies that I work with, Audio-Technica, Fender, Gibson, Roland, I've been with for almost 45 years now. All of those digital technologies were just nascent at the time, back in the early 70s. So I had this background knowledge about the military. So one day I just wrote a paper. My dad said, "You got an idea, you write it down." So I had a conversation with a guy that I met in England, Nick Cook, who was the senior editor, aviation editor for Change Defense Weekly. And he said, "Listen, I got something I want to show you." So he showed me an article that showing that an S-band radar, that's S for Sierra, band radar could track the space shuttle. Well, I'd been reading in Aviation Week about missile defense, and I said, well, wait a minute, if you could track the space shuttle with an S-band radar, that happens to be the S-band radar is the heart and soul of the Navy's Aegis anti-air system. What if you could track a warhead? So I went to a steel guitar player buddy I know who also works at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And I said, can you do some math for me? He did the math. He says, I don't know exactly what you're doing here, but whatever it is, the answer is yes. So I said, okay. So I wrote the paper, gave it to Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, who I spent a lot of time with on the counterterrorism stuff, going overseas, protecting him, just trying to get him home safe. And he gave it to the vice chairman of the Armed Services Committee, who said, what is this guy from Raytheon or Boeing? I said, no, he's a guitar player for the Doobie Brothers. So I get a call from Kurt Wellen, and he says, I don't know where you got this. Number one, we're going to classify it because it has to be classified. Number two, would you accept the position as the chairman of the Missile Defense Committee on the Armed Services Committee as an advisor? I said, sure. What does that mean? They said, well, you'll find out. So, you know, a week later, I'm strapped in a chair and they're asking me questions about all the crazy stuff I did on the road and my life. And so it all worked out. So the next thing I know, I'm at the Pentagon working for General Mal O'Neill at the Strategic Defense Initiative Organization. And I'm TDY'd out to Lawrence Livermore working on Brilliant Pebbles and what the politics euphemistically refers to as Star Wars. And there you go. So next thing I know, I'm in the game. And then in 1993, after the first attack on the World Trade Center, I got a call from a gentleman, as I refer to on the dark side, and you obviously know what I'm referring to. And he said, listen, we got plenty of spooks, but no cops. We're putting together a law enforcement working group to bring the intelligence community and law enforcement together because we need to do this. Yes, we all understand Presidential Directive 12333. We don't surveil U.S. citizens, yada, 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 and fair enough, but we need to do something. So I was already a reserve officer for Los Angeles Police Department. And I had all the clearances from Department of Energy for all the way up to including nuclear weapons. So I said, sure. And so next week I was strapped into another chair. and you know, so the group that I was with at Los Angeles Police Department was the anti-terrorism group. So I had a long background in terrorism and counterterrorism. So I guess that's kind of how all of this came together. And next thing I know, I'm finding out that every general that I know is either a guitar player or a drummer. I just had a meeting with General Raymond 2 days ago, the head of Space Force, and he's a pretty good drummer.
Oh, wow.
You guys like together and jam, huh?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm on a red team in a war game, and he runs into the red cell, says, Baxter, I need to see you right away. I'm thinking, all right, I screwed up somewhere. So he takes me out to the parking lot, shows me a video of him playing drums. He says, what do you think? I said, well, actually, you're a hell of a timekeeper. You know, and that's all I care about with the drummers is keep a good time, being funky. So it's interesting how all of this crosses over. And I remember having a senator ask me, so, you know, what does guitar have to do with missile defense? I said, sir, with all due respect, a radar is just an electric guitar on steroids. If you understand the physics of how all this works, it shouldn't be a problem for you to be able to, you know, get your head around
comprehend it.
So that's kind of where we're at.
What an amazing story. What amazing way that all happened. Do you thank your father now for handing you that book and giving you that directive? And also sounds like great advice. Write your ideas down. That's good.
Well, and only in America. This can only happen in America. I mean, Brian May, the lead guitar player for Queen, just got his PhD in astrophysics. Wow. It turns out the guy that was his thesis manager used to be a partner of my old boss at Lawrence Livermore, who's now the head of the physics department at the University of Rochester. So it's a small world. Then I get a call from Paul Reed Smith. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He builds guitars, beautiful instruments. He says, Skunk, I got an idea to do an underwater acoustic detection capability. So I said, all right, show it to me. So he shows it to me. So I get on a phone I called Nevin Carr over at the Office of Naval Research and said, Nev, you got to see this. So he checks it out, and next thing you know, he gets a call from Paul Reed Smith, gets a call from the Navy, and now he's got a company called Digital Harmonics that's doing work for the U.S. government.
I don't know what it is about this, these stories you're telling us and the people that are involved, but something about it gives me comfort knowing that you're advising Skunk and that other musicians are advising, because I really feel like music is such, and musicians that understand that, that world, understand a lot about our world and a lot about people.
By the way, I have one question for you.
Sure.
How do you feel about being strapped into a chair?
No big deal.
I wasn't sure. I mean, I wouldn't like it myself.
One point I wanted to bring up, or sorry,
it's an
were you
interesting
answering?
8 hours. No, I'm just saying,
I'll bet.
Hope the straps aren't that tight.
I know.
One interesting thing I wanted to bring up is that I grew up in the 70s. I mean, I was born in 1970, and I grew up with my parents who had come from the 60s, and the war, World War II they grew up in World War II or after, or as children through that. And then, Vietnam and all these different conflicts, and they were hippies. And I grew up on your music, Steely Dan, of course, and Doobie Brothers.
Then you must have had an Ultimate Spinach album if you were with hippies.
We had a lot of great music. And I do pinch myself every day that I get to talk to people like you or Mick Fleetwood and Chris Hillman and so many great musicians that I grew up on with my parents. But your music, I think, really defined a generation, and that's a very overused, I think, term, but you really did define that generation, that time. That your music is in film and in our on our radios and in our cars and in our ears, now streaming. And my father was a general contractor. I worked on construction sites with him my entire life into classic rock, and the veterans that worked on these projects, on these homes with him. The music defined my life and a lot of other lives, and I think veterans' lives that fought in some of these wars. It's a part of the fabric. And it's interesting to me that you defined and captured those times so well, and the struggles and the feelings, but that it's transferred, it's spanned generations. It's just as relevant now. It really it's this soundtrack almost to generations, to many generations. And I think it's so interesting that you are on the other side as well, although you define, the feeling sometimes of unrest or turmoil or conflict, but also are part of, understanding that on the other side as well.
Well, you're very kind to say that. It's, again, having grown up in the United States, I mean, I grew up in Mexico, but having been, I am a U.S. citizen, and actually growing up outside the country gives you a great perspective on America. I am just honored to be a part of this country, and now to be able to give something back. That's I don't know how to describe that feeling. My dad, I'm very much imbued duty, honor, and country. Not political, not at all. It's all about duty, honor, and country for all of us.
Well, so well said. And it really, you're right. You define what we can all be, and how great this country is that you don't have to be just one thing, and you can contribute in many different ways. And so I thank you, Jeff, Skunk. I thank you so much for that. We do have to take a real quick break here. Our special guest, in case you're just joining us, is Jeff Skunk Baxter. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the Doobie Brothers, and he was a guitarist in Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan. He chairs the U.S. Congressional Advisory Board on Missile Defense, he's got a new solo album, which is soon to be released. So stay with us
Thank
here.
you, sir.
We will let you know when that comes out. And before we go to break, Dr. D, we're going to talk about justice for vets with Skunk. Veterans fought for our freedom. We fight for theirs. Help give veterans the support they have earned. Justice for Vets is dedicated to transforming the way the justice system identifies, assesses, and treats our veterans, leading the national effort to put a veterans treatment court in reach of every veteran in need. They are committed to ensuring that no veteran is left behind by providing training and technical assistance to help communities bring together local, state, and federal resources to directly serve veterans involved in the justice system due to mental health disorders, trauma, and substance abuse. In doing so, they keep veterans out of jail and prison, preventing the loss of one of our nation's greatest assets to our families and to our communities, and connect them with the benefits and the treatment they have all earned while saving tax dollars for the American public. Justice for Vets has established over 250 veteran treatment courts and trained over 3,000 court staff. In addition, Justice for Vets has conducted 40 volunteer veteran mentor boot camp training, serving thousands of veteran mentors. Go to justiceforvets.org and see how you can help. We're going to be playing music from American Vinyl All Stars, which Skunk is involved in. And we've got a Carly Simon, I believe Skunk produced this song with Train.
One of the folks from Train, yeah.
Yeah, Calling All Angels.
Charlotte Colleen, yeah, who wrote that, yeah.
And we will be playing that at the end of the show in its entirety and throughout. And it's a veterans benefit song. We are with Jeff Skunk Baxter. We will be right back. Stay with us.
All right.
Skunk.
Okay.
I was unclear with Mike. I couldn't find. I found the song, and we've played that in the entirety at the end. But I couldn't find any way to direct them. If I direct them to buy the song, the listeners will that support you or
we
excuse me?
We haven't been able to do that yet, but
okay.
I'm glad that it's sort of risen to the surface again, and we will figure out a way.
Okay, so when you do, we just Mike can let me know, and we can play it again and again and direct people there. I'm happy to put commercials in the show and anything else that that comes up that you'd like us to get out there. Okay, so we're going to come back and whenever Richard's ready.
All right, stand by in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. We've got a very special guest today. We are honoring our veterans today and always with Jeff Skunk Baxter. Welcome back, Jeff. When we talked about offline in the 60s, when veterans returned from Vietnam, at that time, people were spitting on them and cursing them. And you feel that it's really changed, our times have changed, that we have much more respect for veterans, that has become much better. Why do you think that is? And how can we elevate it even more?
Well, if there is a problem, if we do have a problem in the country, much of it has to do with politicizing things. The Vietnam War was highly politicized, and it was used as a tennis ball, back and forth and back and forth. And so unfairly, the participants who were the veterans were caught in the middle. And again, great amounts of emotion and chest beating and hair rending and all that stuff lost the plot and lost the bubble. Now, what usually happens in America is cooler heads prevail, things calm down, people grow up, and they begin to realize the bigger picture. And so I think one of the great benefits of that has been that our veterans are now not looked upon as a part of any political ideology. They are respected for the service they give to their country. And that's huge. I'm just happy to see that. And I think the generation, my generation, which was, protesting in the streets, et cetera, et cetera. Now they're paying rent and they're putting their kids in school, and they're also seeing what the military really means for this country. Because I've been all over the world. I've been to some of the real crap holes of the world. I've been to Cambodia. I've been to Nicaragua. I've been in the jungles of the Philippines. I can't say what I was doing, but I can tell you, seeing how the rest of the world lives, it's no wonder everybody wants to come here. And the fact that we have what we have, that we can say what we want. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, I suppose. I'm just reiterating that we have these freedoms. And I look at the Constitution, and I look at the Bill of Rights, and I look at the Declaration of Independence, most incredible documents ever conceived by man. There has to be somebody to protect that. And those are our veterans. And I'll tell you a quick story, just to give you an idea what other people think, especially when you grow up in another country. I have a very good friend of mine who passed away some years ago, a gentleman named Dr. Peter Rustan. I worked with him in one of the agencies that I worked for quite a long time. It's in space matters. So when Pete was 17, he grew up in Cuba. And so he decided that he wanted to join the United States Army. So he got in an inner tube, swam through the minefield at Guantanamo Bay, got onto the beach, was lucky enough to meet a U.S. Army colonel who said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I want to join the United States Army." And luckily, the colonel was open-minded, understood it. Pete joined the Army, served for a good length of time, and became a hugely respected member of the intelligence community. And you usually find out how important being an American is when you talk to somebody who worked hard to get here, going through the process, the citizenship, swimming through a minefield.
Right.
That pretty much says it all to me. And the reason I wanted to tell you that story is because that's what our veterans are about. That's the kind of people that fight for us, the men and women on the wall. It's hard to explain what it is unless you've been there, unless you've seen it, or otherwise unless you've served. But the Justice for Vets concept is beautiful, because being in combat is not an easy thing, and it can leave huge scars, and it can cloud your thinking. And the idea of being able to give someone a second chance when maybe they have been the victim of a number of different things. And we all have free will, but some of us have more free will than others based on situations that we've faced and problems that we've tried to work through. So this Justice for Vets thing really struck me as one of the right things to do. There's some other wonderful charities working with animals. There is a charity out here in LA that has vets working with horses and dogs. There's a Guitarist for Vets, getting guitars and instruments to vets so that they can write songs, so that they can get inside music and maybe be able to express some of their feelings, meet some folks, enjoy the camaraderie of playing music together. Whatever it is out there, folks, whatever it is that floats your boat, cranks your tractor, turns your rotor, paddles your canoe, whatever it is, find it, be active, and do it with love, because you're probably doing more for your country. You don't have to serve your country. You don't have to serve in the military. There's many ways to do it.
Skunk, when, having, grown up through these, or having, I guess, not grown up, but lived through this time. And also, again, like I said at the last commercial break, really defined these times with your music during the 60s, 70s. How much did your perspective at that time change as a musician, as an artist, change from into where you are now? Has it grown, or did you always really have a real support and a real love for the country and what makes it so great?
Well, again, my dad imbued in me definitely a sense of duty, honor, and country. I was lucky enough to meet Jimmy James before it became Jimi Hendrix. And we'd had a couple of conversations. It was a very volatile subject at the time, back in the 60s,
Right.
with Vietnam War. But Jimmy served in the military. And when the discussions would come up, when we'd be down at the Kettle of Fish, or somewhere in the village having a conversation, everybody would get all steamed up, and Jimmy would just kind of stay laid back. So I understood that there are other people, even at the time, who were trying to figure out what this was all about. And I think I probably was more on the side of, I understood. I may not have been happy with the Vietnam War, and my father wasn't either. And he was, again, hardcore military. So separating the duty, honor, and country and service to your country from the political piece of it, I'm glad that we're finally there. At the time, it was very difficult. Very difficult. You get into heated arguments, and people were dying in the streets. I mean, it was not pretty.
We are speaking with Jeff Skunk Baxter. He's spending the hour with us today, and we're honoring veterans and men and women in the military services. You know him from the Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan, and many other great, playing with many great musicians that we all love. But he chairs the U.S. Congressional Advisory Board on Missile Defense, and I'm not sure if you all know that. So it's a very interesting.
I think I do. It's been a while. Meanwhile, I'm with 5 different government agencies, and but I'm still in the game.
Oh,
yeah, sure.
Still in the game. Jeff Skunk Baxter, Calling All Angels by Carly Simon and member of Train, produced by Skunk, is coming up at the end of the show. It's a veterans benefit song. We're also talking about Angel Force USA, suicide prevention and brain health for veterans. Artists of all genres, business leaders, and heroes join together to eliminate suicidalence. It's avoidance of discussion about suicide. If you are suffering from suicidal thoughts and the desire to die, or want resources to help a veteran who is suffering, please call the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. And find out more on angelforceusa.com. We'll be right back.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, great.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. We're talking with Jeff Skunk Baxter. This hour, we're honoring the men and women in our military forces and this great country of ours that we live in, and the veterans out there that protect and keep us safe and do so much more around the world, helping so many countless people in many countries. Today, we honor them with, again, Jeff Skunk Baxter. Jeff, talk to me about this saying, I won't give up if you don't give up. And that's something that means a lot to you, I know. And could you define that and define why?
Well, like anything else, anytime you have a problem or you need to improve yourself or work something through, it starts with yourself. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can accomplish it. I mean, you can start going downrange, but the real question is there anybody that was willing to support you? So the idea being, if you don't give up, sir, ma'am, we won't give up on you. And I was struck by that, how beautifully that lyric cohedes that thought.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, when I asked Carly if she would do this, I didn't even get finished asking her before she said, absolutely, absolutely. But she's one of the most wonderful women on the planet, heart as big as Texas. And from her lyrics, you know how deep she gets into the human condition and the human psyche. And when she heard about this, that yeah, like I say, I couldn't finish the sentence. So thank you, Carly, for doing that with us. If you won't give up, then we'll be there for you. The problem has been in the past, as we moved out of the politicization of Vietnam War and serving your country into separating it, that was a very difficult, trying, stressful time in between. And for a lot of veterans, there was no person to say, we won't give up. There was really no place to go. Now, that's not fair. The Veterans Administration did the best they could, but the real understanding of even PTSD, although it's been around for a very long time, as you know from your father, and I know from my father, when they came back from World War II, they did not talk too much about their war experiences because there really wasn't anybody to talk to and there was nobody that would understand it. So like anything else, if you can't find someone of like mind, it really is difficult to be able to feel that there is someone who can empathize with you and understand your condition. But now we live in a different world. You mentioned psychologists as somebody, my grandmother, and they think it's a horrible stigma. Now everybody's a psychologist. Everybody is self-aware, and everybody is self-examining. So I guess all I can do is reiterate. All you have to do, if you see a vet, just go up and say thank you. That's really all anyone wants, is they want to be validated as a human being. They want to know that somebody cared about the sacrifice that they made, that it was important to them, and that the reason that they went into the military and the ideals that they, and the philosophy that they based that on are validated by other people and are real and valid, goes a very long way in the healing process.
There was a movie called Welcome that came out several years ago. It was a documentary about Vietnam vets and a program that they were going through. And it wasn't just the vet, it was actually the vet and their wives or husbands and children and so forth. And one of the things the producer said to me, he says that in spite of everything that's going on with this program that these vets are going through, he says, the real issue isn't getting the vets to conform to civilian life or to the civilian world. It's getting the civilian world to embrace and open up to the vets, changing their perspective. And it sounds like, as you described earlier in the program, that has begun. It's been going on. And as you said, people are beginning to separate the politics from the human being who was put in harm's way and now is back. And what you've just said, I think, is absolutely correct, that they need to be validated, that what they did was important. If at the very least it was important to them, so say, hey, thank you, as you said. But I thought that was a real interesting distinction.
How hard is that?
No, it's not hard
to
at all.
Acknowledge.
Yeah.
And I would take this even for, I mean, this is a good lesson for all of us as human beings to acknowledge the person, in front of you and pay attention and, and to listen to them and acknowledge them for the vets and for all human beings.
Well, this is the way it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to agree with the reason why they chose to serve. Push that aside. They chose to serve. They chose to do this. And the government isn't going to be there for them. That's the real sad fact. I did some research, Skunk, and found out that this problem of that our government not being there for its vets goes back to the Revolutionary War. So this is nothing modern day. This has been going on for the last couple of centuries. Well, so that's why the people, the citizens, have got to step up and say, hey, whether you liked the war or what was going on there, they went.
Well, what's the first sentence in the Declaration of Independence?
We the people.
That's correct.
Yeah, we the people.
We're going to take our very last break. The good news is there are numerous ways that you can get involved and that you can in an area that maybe you are interested in, as Skunk said,
Exactly.
be it animals.
Yeah.
There are
Playing the guitar, gardening,
playing the guitar,
auto repair,
there are numerous avenues, and we're mentioning a couple of them and talking about a couple of them today. But take a look into those. I encourage you. It goes along with something that you're already passionate and you can help.
Yeah.
Okay. I won't give up if you don't give up. We'll be right back. But before we go, Dr. D, and this will be our last break, Guitars for Vets. Veterans shouldn't have to face the challenges of PTSD in silence or alone. Through the teamwork and camaraderie of Guitars for Vets, they can join a community where they learn to play guitar and find solace in the songs they love, as well as the songs they have yet to write. We'll be right back.
Excellent. Very
okay.
good.
Last break here. No more breaks. Thank you. Can we have you just for a few more minutes, Skunk?
I'm in.
All right.
The man
I love
is
that.
in.
I love that. And I thank you. You know what? We reached out to you with the Mariel Hemingway thing. Mike didn't finish the sentence. It sounded like, and you said, I'm in, I'm going to help. I'll help wherever I can. I love that. I really love that. I admire that a lot. And I'm so grateful for you to do the show today and talk about this.
Okay. Final segment.
Give me 1 second. Let me find my spot
Get
here.
your spot there, and I'll load this, and we're ready. So whenever you're ready.
Do you want to talk about the veterans that are taking their own lives, Skunk? And
absolutely.
Okay.
That's not. It has to be.
Spoken
of. You got to talk about it. Yeah. Ready?
Okay.
I'll wait. No problem.
Go.
3, 2, 1. You're live.
Skunk, you've said, and that is Jeff Skunk Baxter I'm referring to. Welcome back, Skunk.
Thank you, sir.
You've said it is incumbent of the citizens of the world. We need to reach out and help the veterans, to not give up on helping them. And you said, I will not leave you. One of the tenets of the soldier is we do not leave the soldier on the battlefield. The battle of PTSD is just as deadly as a bullet. We don't leave our men or our women behind.
That's part of the soldier's creed.
Be proactive. That was a quote from you that you gave me. And I wanted to talk about that. Every single day, 22 veterans take their own lives. 22 suicides a day, a suicide every 65 minutes. There are many reasons, but a lot of it's low self-esteem. Why do you feel like this number is so just incredibly horrible?
Well, I'll give us something. I remember way back in the day, back when I was still in Boston, I had a friend of mine who was a drummer in a band. He was a drug dealer, and he did heroin, and he dealt heroin to support his habit. And I asked him once, I said, why do you do that to yourself? He said, because it kills the pain I never knew I had. And I thought that was one of the most profound things I have ever heard in my life. The despair, the pain, the agony of not being able to talk to someone, of not finding anyone who can empathize with you, or being so overwhelmed that you feel that the only way to kill the pain is either to become, brutally addicted to whatever it may be, or it finally gets to the point where your self-esteem is so low that you finally say, I don't deserve to live. Nobody else thinks I deserve to live. So why should I think that? And then that leads to suicide. And the fact that there are so many, that's an incredible figure when you think about it. I don't know any industry where the suicide rate is 22 people per day. That is insane. And the fact that American citizens, people of our country, brothers and sisters, are going through that and are suffering through that condition. And some of us are still saying, gee, should I really do something? What the hell is wrong with you? And I don't mean to be angry and crude, but God damn it, what the hell is wrong with you? What about this is your problem? If you, so many people see a stray dog in the street and they bring it in and feed it and nurture it. And I applaud that. I applaud the feelings for it and I understand it. Well, multiply that times a factor of 100, 5 or 6 or 10 orders of magnitude, and then understand where your feelings should be. I don't think it's difficult to comprehend if you put it in terms that are easy to see. I don't know what it's going to take to make this understandable and I'm trying to think of what the words are, to make it something that makes it almost your duty to do.
Yeah.
But every time, I don't think a day goes by that I don't see a vet in trouble. And when you pull off a freeway off ramp and you see a gentleman or a woman or a man with a sign that says, I need help, I'm a vet. I always roll down the window. I say, sir, what was your MOS? And they said 39 Bravo. And I make sure that I give him the money because I know. And when he says it, he doesn't say I was 39 Bravo. He says, I was 39 Bravo. That says it all.
I like that.
Pride.
I like that.
Still, after all that pain, pride, duty, honor, country.
There's been a sea change, as you've said. There's you like that. You like the way things are moving. There's so much more we can do. All of us to support the veterans, to support. Again, I say it's our mothers, it's our fathers, it's our grandfathers, our brothers or sisters, it's our family. This is our family out there, an extended family that chooses to do something hard for all of us. Another thing that you said to me that struck me, Skunk, was because we live in a world where everything is about me as a pronoun, that we tend to move from one story to another, from one flavor of the week, the year, because some of the politicization in terms of the military, we tend to forget that they are actually men and women who step forward. And when they are no longer the front page news, the story diminishes and the person doesn't know where to turn. It's not on the front page anymore. And so if you know a vet, just reach out. Sometimes just reaching out saves someone's life. How important, Skunk, is the human touch? And whether it's touch or it's touch in ways where you're acknowledging them and you're reaching out. How important do you think that is to
center of the universe? I mean, when it comes to separating an individual from your fellow brothers and sisters, it's healing. Actual physical touch releases certain neurotransmitters in the brain that are that amplify good feelings: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. That is a medical fact. And if you're looking to connect, most veterans that I know, some of the highlights in their lives were those experiences in combat with other men and women. They stay in touch. There's a bond, a camaraderie, a band of brothers that comes from that. So if you reach out to one vet, he or she will probably be connected to another, connected to another, connected to another. There is already a built-in system of connecting people and individuals and groups. So when you reach out, you may end up reaching out to more than just one person. And the good news is the system to do that already exists. It was built in. If you were, 39 Bravo and your other comrades that were 39 Bravo or 22 Alpha or whatever it was, those people are there. And they may be able to reach out to that one person in that group that really, really needs the help. You may meet a veteran or know a vet that has somewhat dealt with some of these issues, but they're always connected. If you go down range, you will find someone who really needs your help.
I love again that you bring up that, we're all so far, a lot of us are so far removed from the military and the life and all that. We feel like we don't know how we could help unless you pass someone on the freeway there or in passing. We don't know how to reach out to that. But again, one point that you bring up, Skunk, that I think is so important is that no matter what your interest is, no matter what your hobbies are, there's a way that you can reach out and help through various groups. I mean, there's homes built for veterans, which is, I think, really, really a great cause and group. And there are multiple organizations. There's Guitars for Vets, donate a guitar, donate money, or help out a vet to learn to play guitar. There's music, and there are various music organizations that help vets. There's Angel Force USA.
Very important.
There are we talked about Justice for Vets throughout the show. There are just so many different avenues, and these are a few that Skunk highlighted today with me to talk about, but there are so many more. So please, when you finish listening, think about this and see if you can do something to really make a difference. There's a lot out there, but this is really important, the most important, saving human lives and recognizing people and helping them out. Skunk, we are out of time here, and I really appreciate the time that you've given us and shared today with us and the listeners and the veterans out there, and just the listeners that may know a veteran. It's been a very, very powerful show and time to have spent with you. I wanted to give you final words to veterans or to men and women serving in the military, if you'd like to say anything here. It's almost there aren't words to express the appreciation for the men and the women who stand on the wall. The men and the women who stood on the wall, I won't give up if you don't give up. And for everyone else out there, we the people. That's how this works. It won't work if it's not we the people. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you, Skunk. Jeff Skunk Baxter. Really appreciate it. And communicate, reach out, listen more, and evolve. Everybody have a great week.
Audio clear.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that. I appreciate the opportunity. I hope it generates.
Yeah, I hope it does too, and I know it will. You never know when you reach a person at a time when they need it, and we may or may not ever know, but we know there are people out there that listen and need, and this may help. And so
are we? We're not recording anymore.
No, we could. Oh, actually, let's do do you mind doing a radio drop? And if you want to mention Justice for Vets or Guitars for Vets, or what, if you want to mention one that you really, I think it was Justice for Vets that you were putting a lot of focus on.
I'll talk about all of them,
Okay, yeah, you can mention whatever you like. Can you do us to like, hey, this is Jeff Skunk Baxter.
Sure.
Please support, or however you like to phrase that. I won't give up if you don't give up, however you'd like to phrase that. And then at the end, just say, and you're listening to the Jeremiah show, and we'll put that in as future, in future
Yep.
commercials and things and shows.
All right.
Okay.
I'll
Sure.
count you down. In 3, 2, 1.
Hey, this is Jeff Skunk Baxter. I just want you to know that we all need to keep our vets, veterans, men and women who served, who are on the wall and who were on the wall in our hearts at all times. Sometimes they need help. There are a number of organizations that are dedicated to helping our veterans. Organizations like Angel Force, like Justice for Vets, Guitars for Vets. Please reach out if you can. Open your heart and reach out to a veteran and let them know, number one, that they are loved and respected, and number one, that you won't give up if they don't give up. Thank you.
And then tag it with, and you're listening to the Jeremiah show. That's all you need to say. 3, 2, 1.
And you're listening to the Jeremiah show.
Got it. Terrific. Thank you
So
so
are
much.
we not,